Selwyn here from winstrength.com, bringing you a new training vlog. I know it's been a while, but there's been some things in the works, and we finally wrapped up the Darkhorse Training vlog, the final overview and rating there, which you can catch on the channel. I'll leave a link right here. But with that being said, it is time to start a new training cycle, a new training program, and with that in mind, I would like to take that as an opportunity to kind of shift the direction of the channel and where that's going. I'd like to take a little bit of time to explain where I think I want to take the channel and where we're looking in the times ahead. So obviously, this being a training vlog, I will still be producing some training vlogs out there so I can document the journey, bring you along the way, kind of see where I started and where I'm able to get to over the next couple of sessions here. But I will be stopping the daily training vlogs and switching over to a weekly training vlog format, so I'll be able to kind of produce slightly longer videos where I voice over the workouts, give some insights and lessons to be learned from what I have done wrong and what also I've done correctly there. So with that being said, there will be slightly longer videos. I'll be doing those once a week, hopefully publishing those videos out once a week, probably every Friday. We'll drop that, looking at like maybe a 15-20 minute video with a recap, and that way you can stay up to date with the training. So what about the other videos? My goal moving forward will be to add some more value and hopefully bring you guys a bit more useful content that you can use in your own training and your own lives. I really want to embody the mantra that I have, which is a better life through strength. I really think that that's possible. I think the lessons that we learn in the gym under the barbell can really be put to good use outside of the gym and in your everyday life. That being said, I want to not just be a training vlog. I hopefully want to become a resource that you guys can look to and turn to when you need some questions, when you have some questions about your own training. What should I do here? What should I do there? Hopefully give you some more both technical, practical, and philosophical lessons that you learn by training with heavy weights and developing your own strength. I'll be addressing topics such as training methodology, theory, as well as some mindset. I'll also be doing some movement breakdowns, as well as some other training recommendations. Pushing into the space a little bit further, being a home garage gym owner myself, I want to provide some insights and some useful information that you hopefully can implement into your own home or garage gym if that's the situation you find yourself in. Equipment reviews, DIY tips, tips and tricks to keep it organized, things of that nature. And finally, the biggest thing that I want to shift over to is that mindset piece, that how to get the mind right, how to take the lessons from the gym, turn that into lessons in life that you can use in your everyday experiences. That mental toughness and tenacity that we develop in the gym an hour or two every other day, a couple of days a week, can really help transfer that into everyday life. I believe it's a cornerstone habit where this activity, this habit, really lends itself well to pretty much everything else we do, whether that be work, family, relationships, just everyday living. You can really make yourself a better person because you've already made yourself a better person in the gym. With all that being said, let me know in the comments below what you think about the new style of videos. If there's anything you want me to address in the upcoming series, in the new format style, if there's any questions you might have that I can research and provide you some information and content with. So hopefully this will become a new turning point for the channel, and hopefully you'll all find this useful. So now that's out of the way, let's actually move on to the first week of training. As you all know, I've finished up and wrapped up the Darkhorse Training program. I thought that went really well. I took a week off, so there's been no training in between then and now. But what I was hoping to do is rerun the Barbell Medicine Legacy Strength template. It's a template that I've run in the past twice already, so this will be the third time I've run it. Previously when I've run it, I've come across some really good PRs. It's a 12-week program that I think is really great for developing 1 rep max strength in the 4 big compound lifts: squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press. Those 4 really get some good results in the 1 rep field, but I did find myself somewhat lacking in the GPP conditioning portion of those programs, mainly because that was a 5th extra day, and I would generally drop that out because my schedule didn't really allow for a 5th day of training. So with that in mind, coming straight off the Darkhorse program, I wanted to kind of blend the two together in some weird hodgepodge way. So it's kind of the Barbell Medicine meets Darkhorse Training strength program. Obviously, I won't be giving the strength template a final rating and review, just because it isn't the strength template as it is prescribed and as it is produced by the guys over at Barbell Medicine. So that won't really be the aim of this training vlog. It'll just be to keep track of the progress and see if I'm still able to get some good results with the training program with the modifications that I'm kind of throwing in there. With that being said, I'll also try and be a bit vague as to what the original strength template is and what I'm adding and what I'm not adding. The things I'm taking away, definitely the set rep schemes and all that type of stuff, just because it is a paid program, and it is a program that I highly recommend people check out if you are wanting to increase the strength in those 4 main lifts, or if you're thinking about entering into a powerlifting competition. I think it's a great template to get started with. Maybe enlist the help of a coach further down the line, but definitely when you're first getting started, their templates are great. I've personally noticed some great experiences out of them. So without wanting to give away too much of the actual program, I will be discussing my training along the way. So if it doesn't make sense, if some parts kind of feel like they're left out, that's kind of by design, so that the original program isn't really put out there, so that people still have to go buy that program, because I would really recommend that program there. So like most training programs, the first week's generally the easiest week of the training program, and this is no different. It's kind of a way to get you acclimatized to what your body's going to be doing over the next session, the next 12 weeks, whatever the case may be. It's kind of an introduction to the program. So most first weeks, I don't think you can really base anything off of that. If you were to try a program, I definitely say give it at least a month. I mean, I would ideally recommend completing the program, just because you've already either purchased it or committed to doing it, and you're going to see the most results out of that program if you do complete it. If you cut it short, you should really have a really good reason as to why you're not completing the program as written, just because then you've wasted a month of training. At least when you do the 12 weeks, you're going to get something out of that training. Even if the results aren't as what you think they would be, you would have kind of run that full cycle, kind of like some antibiotics. Just because you feel better after the first 2 days and they've given you a week-long prescription, definitely take that week-long prescription as a doctor recommends, much like the training program. Continue that through so you do see the results that should have been realized out of that training program. And obviously the first week's going to be the easiest, because all training programs should have some sort of progression. They should be making it more difficult somehow along the way. You should be going through a progression of strength development. That's the whole reason for a program. If the last week of the program and the first week of the program look the same, don't start that program, because it's not a program that'll help you get better. It'll just keep you in the same spot. The whole point of getting a coach, getting a training program, is to make you better, not to keep you the same. Whether that be better strength, better conditioning, you can do more reps, you can do something. If you can't do anything more than you did after the training program, the training program wasn't a good training program. If I can only bench 100 pounds twice, day 1 and to day 2, if one of the goals was to increase my bench press, and I'm still stuck at 100 pounds for 2 reps, then the training program was ineffective. I shouldn't have done that in the first place. So keep that in mind when you're kind of assessing the training programs, kind of looking at training outcomes. Definitely know that there should be some sort of betterment at the end of it. It shouldn't be a static program. It shouldn't be the same prescription week 1 as it is week 12, week 16, even week 8. Somewhere there should be something changing along the way, so that it does lead you to getting better, getting stronger, getting more fit, getting whatever it is, whatever you want to get better at. It should be helping you get better at that said goal. So what I'll do now is, like most videos, I'll have a brief introduction, and then I'll switch over to some voiceovers so that we can talk through. I can talk over what I'm doing for that week and that movement, some lessons learned, and what we can take away from the week's training program. So starting off week 1, day 1, opening up with some squats with the safety squat barbell. I like the Elite FTS SS yoke bar. The reason I have done this is because in the previous months of training, I experimented with switching out my regular barbell back squat with the safety squat barbell back squat, and I noticed that it just didn't have any shoulder pain issues during the entire stretch of the program, especially when the weights got heavy. I noticed in earlier part of last year when I started to do some heavy barbell back squats in the low bar position, which is my preferred position, and combine that with increased benching frequency, my right shoulder just didn't agree with that. That would manifest in like bicep pain and just shoulder soreness over the course of the following day. But once I switched over to using the SS yoke for some heavy squats, that pain kind of subsided and almost disappeared. So it's not something I really have to worry about anymore, especially with this type of program where we're increasing the squat and bench press frequency. The way that I found to mitigate that is to use the SS yoke barbell, and that's something you can think about for yourself. If you're training with some shoulder pain, I would highly recommend either ditching, really lowering the frequency of the low bar back squat, or lowering the intensity of it. So now I've switched, I'm still doing the low bar back squat, but in different weights and different intensities, so it's not really as heavy on the shoulders, and I found that was really what was causing that pain there. Another issue would be to fix your barbell back squat form as well, but this is a good solution for me personally. Then we're moving on to some Romanian deadlifts here, just as a superset kind of movement. You notice my hands are a little wider. I like to widen out the grip on these type of movements where the difficulty is increased but the intensity has decreased, just because for the deadlift especially, it helps train that back, and I think it helps maintain that upper back tightness. Moving on to some overhead pressing. This is something that I really want to focus on this time around. Again, the overhead press I think has been one of my weaker points of the lift. Also, if I do want to start converting into some strongman style training, the overhead press is a very pivotal movement pattern. So wanting to get better at that is something that's high on my list of priorities. So I might have to sub out some bench pressing for some overhead pressing. And here we wrap up with some pendlay rows. You'll notice that I'm doing pendlay rows with a heavier weight than I did the Romanian deadlifts. And I think that's just because of the fatigue setting in there from doing heavy squats, followed that right up with some Romanian deadlifts. Here we do, you see obviously I'm not completing that in one clean set. Moving on to day 2, where we start off with some deadlifts, just conventional deadlifts with a regular grip. I am wanting to just focus on my form. For this one, it feels like I've overthunk the deadlift almost, or I've watched a lot of technique and form videos, and I've been trying to do a lot, and I think I just need to get back to pulling some heavy weights with the deadlift and kind of relearn how to deadlift almost. But I've been trying to pay more attention this time around to percentages and less attention to RPE. I think the one thing that has held back performance in the past has been my over-reliance on RPE style training rather than intensity-based training, which I think has made me underestimate the amount of weights I should be using, or overestimate the type of intensity I should be using. I am a fan of using wrist wraps. I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't, especially if it mitigates any wrist pain. I think personally, typing on a computer for as many years as I have, I think that has definitely aggravated my wrist joints. So hopefully that's something that I can overcome in the future, but for right now, using those wrist wraps helps me bench more frequently. And then we're moving over here to some tempo squats. So these are 3-0-3, so 3 count descent, no pause, and then 3 count ascent. In seconds, this is probably 1.5 second descent and ascent. The one thing that's funnily enough that I find more difficult here is the slower ascent. I'm so used to firing up really quickly for most of the movements, and the lowering part is generally a little slower than usual, so lowering the weight hasn't been so bad, but standing up and not driving up as fast as I can has been interesting with this one. Notice the weight is significantly decreased. It is because of that time under tension, as well as the fact that we're doing 10 reps here. So you're looking at maybe 4 seconds of set, so like 40 seconds of squatting work, which is more so than the usual 5 reps with a heavy weight. I think this is good for really focusing on that form, making sure that my knees stay where they need to stay, and I'm really wanting to focus on keeping those knees forward for as long as possible to make sure that I'm able to engage more legs. From there, we just move on to some kneeling ab wheel rollouts. I'm just a fan of these movements in general. I think they tax the core in quite a good way. They're kind of that movement, so we're not kind of crunching around, and it's really difficult to keep that core stabilized. And then we just move on to some fat grip pull-ups. I've been a fan of the fat grip pull-ups for this programming block, I guess, just because it is going to work that grip a little bit more. And again, wanting to focus on grip training and grip strength for shifting over to some strongman style training. So starting off day 3 with some beltless squats. Obviously this is a very specific accessory movement for the belted competition squat. And the idea behind the beltless squat isn't really to increase ab and core activation, because I believe there was a study where the difference between belted and beltless isn't that much for core activation. This mainly so that we can still load the movement relatively heavy without having to change the movement pattern or the timing too much, because in essence it's a regular competition squat without the aid of a belt, so you're having to push less weight but with the same form and same execution. We move on now to the bench press with the slingshot. Movement I really enjoy. It's a great overloading movement, and that assistance there with the elastic really helps you drive up some more weight, or at least for some more reps. So here we're doing sets of 4, and we're kind of pushing close to the amount of weight I can do for a 1 rep max. So that's a good thing there. I like to use the wrist reps there just because that weight's getting pretty heavy. And then from there we move on to some clean and presses, or power clean and presses. One thing that became apparent during the Darkhorse program was the fact that I did find difficulty with that power clean movement. So that's something I've been wanting to kind of work on, just because if I do want to continue with the strongman style training, it's one of the more principal movements, one of the more core movements of the strongman sport. There is that ability to clean and press things. So clean and press a log, clean and press a stone, clean and press a sandbag, things of that nature. And that was one of the deficiencies I noticed during my Darkhorse program. This is probably where I did too much today for the shoulders. So for the next 2 days after day 3, especially the day after, my shoulders really weren't feeling it, and it was kind of getting just similar to that sensation where I've done too much. Especially today we did lower bar back squat, bench press, and now some overhead pressing and dynamic power clean. So very much a shoulder strenuous day. I think potentially if I do want to continue doing the power clean, I would have to shift it over to another day that isn't so focused on the shoulders and isn't so reliant on that. Just something to think about with programming is your own personal movement styles and injury history. So something like this, maybe you'd be able to continue this day just as like this without any issues, but for me personally, just because of my training experience and even maybe my own mental thoughts going into the day, probably not the best thing to have there. But again, something to look at is to always analyze, how is this training program going to affect you? Because again, at the end of the day, these are all templates and they do need some individualization. Yes, they will work for the majority of people, and it'll work for everybody the majority of the time, but there are small little things here and there that just need to be tweaked so that you can get a program that's best suited for your histories, abilities, preferences, and strengths and weaknesses. That's where a good coach is going to come in, or just some knowledge about how training revolves, and also just training history and experience there. And that wraps up day 3. Moving on to day 4, we start off with some block pulls. You'll see how I managed to get the barbell elevated there, just with some foam and some bumper plates. I set the barbell height here to just below the kneecaps. I've never really played around with a block pull this high before, so I was curious to see how it would go. This is over my 1 rep max already, so that was interesting, and I'm able to rep this out. So obviously this overloads the movement quite a lot by shortening that range of motion down. And it's interesting because you can't get it feels like I'm not as tight until the weight is off the plates, and then my body tightens up to feel that. So hopefully this transfers over to the regular conventional deadlift, because we are playing with weights that are over my 1 rep max, and maybe my body is going to get used to that. And from there we just do some more ab work, nothing crazy, just some toe taps. And not the best form. I'm probably not the person to look to for how to do ab movements, because it's something I have ignored and I don't have years of training in abs under my belt. I only have a couple of months. And then we move on here to some close grip bench pressing. Again, another pretty specific movement to the bench press, but this shifts it over to focusing on to the triceps. I do notice here with the close grip bench press, I do get a bit more lat support because the arms are so close to the sides. And finally, next up we have, again, I think the Romanian deadlift. I notice here 225, so this is heavier than the weights we used before, even though we're doing heavier deadlifts than before. So, just the body has ebbs and flows over the course of the week. Again, you notice that wider grip, something I like to do, not necessarily a snatch grip, or maybe something I look in the future, but generally with these assistance deadlift movements that play with lighter weights, I can play around with the grip angles in order to increase more of that back tension and play around with the grip strength. And wrapping up here, last exercise of the week. I don't know why I put these in there. I just want to do some extra work. Just some lateral raises with some dumbbells. I don't know if these are going to continue to be in the program. This is definitely an addition that I put in there, so they might not make it past week 1. So that wraps up the first week of training. Hopefully you found the voiceovers a little useful. There should be some insights in there. Hopefully you should get some takeaways. Leave in the comments below if you have any other insights into my training, something I can improve upon. If you have any advice, because we all know that unsolicited internet advice is helpful. But the key takeaway is, with these self-modifications, I've learned what to do and what not to do in a way, so the second week should be a little bit better, figuring out what worked and what didn't after this first week of kind of experimenting with adding in some extra work in a day. So taking that condensed Darkhorse training mindset and throwing it into a powerlifting style strength template, we're removing some of that focus on 1 rep max strength and kind of inserting GPP and conditioning and overall strength. So stay tuned for the next video, which will be the first part of a 3-part series where I go over the safety squat barbell or the safety squat yoke barbell. Hopefully you find that useful and interesting. That'll come out later this week. So scheduling should hopefully be Tuesdays and Fridays, new videos. One will be the training review and the other will be your helpful other video, whatever the helpful topic may be for that day. Hopefully this new format will bring you guys some extra value this coming year, kind of a new shift in the channel. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks again for watching. This has been Selin from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.